Alastер Kemбel, you were demanding resignations this afternoon. Will this one do, or do you want more?
I wasn't demanding anything. I was making the point that if the criticism levelled at the BBC had been directed at the government, there would have been several resignations by now. Now, as I said, my view now, I'm out of government, my view is no more or less significant than anyone else's, but I do think that the BBC are making matters even worse for themselves by the way they are behaving since the publication of the report.
What do you mean?
Well, Gavin Davies has resigned, and yet his statement appears to be saying, as Greg Dyke's statement was saying, that in fact they basically stand by the story. They're saying that they basically were happy with the way that the BBC conducted itself, and I just cannot understand how they can say that in the light of the report that has been published today. And, you know, the BBC strategy now, having spent weeks saying Lord Hutton was clearly a man of impeccable integrity whose judgment should not be questioned, the strategy now is to question his judgment. And I think that is wrong. I think they should just face the facts. Lord Hutton has set out the facts, the BBC should face them.
When you were talking this afternoon about what was going on in the culture, the climate between journalists, the media and politicians, you were talking about a prevailing cynicism, a rot almost. When you look at that, it extends much broader than the BBC, and I hope you don't think it extends even to the whole of the BBC. Do you think, in retrospect, that the BBC was the right target for you to take to attack that perceived problem?
It's always been presented as me wanting to attack a media organisation. I have to say, Jeremy, it's partly the journalist in me that feels as strongly about this as I do. And yes, I do think there are lots of good journalists in the BBC and elsewhere. Susan Watts of your programme was singled out within the report and by the Prime Minister. She is not in the same boat as Andrew Gilligan. And I think it is wrong, again, of the BBC today to seek to pretend that those stories were the same. But I think that when large parts of the national media, including the broadcasters, see it really as their job to try to undermine people in public life, politicians, and any other figures in public life, I just think that's the wrong approach.
Do you think that it was helpful that you got so angry about this and, in Lord Hutton's words in his report, overheated things so much?
I said to Lord Hutton, when I gave evidence, that I accepted there were times when I became too angry. But I think when people read the report today, they will see why I was so angry. Because I was being accused of conniving with the intelligence agencies to help the Prime Minister lie to Parliament and the public about the case for going to war in Iraq. And I just think that is beyond the pale. And I mean, I think it's terribly sad because Gavin Davies, until he really, you know, led the organisation which has sought to portray me as a liar, I'd have said Gavin was a friend of mine. And I think it is sad to see the organisation that he and Greg Dyke head in the state that it's in tonight, because it will not face up to the facts and the truth that it says it is interested in broadcasting.
But you pursued this campaign with a vehemence that takes some comprehending. I mean, your diary entry where you talk about a meeting with Jeff Hoon in which you want to, it would fuck Gilligan if the identity of the source came out. Your words in the diary, that kind of vehemence, you know, it doesn't seem somehow to square with this more relaxed, rational analysis of what's gone wrong in this relationship.
Look, I was there as the Prime Minister's Director of Communications and Strategy. The Prime Minister was being accused of something that I found and he found to be beyond the pale. So was I. It wasn't a question of me being vehement. It was a question of me saying to the BBC, look, your story is wrong. Please check your story. I think if you do check it, you'll find that it's wrong. And this was a story that went right around the world. It was broadcast in virtually every newspaper in the world. And we were being accused of being liars.
Do you have any guilt, anxiety at your strategy of getting, as it was put, Kelly's name out there as a means of fighting that story?
Lord Hutton has looked into this in great detail.
I'm not asking about Lord Hutton, I'm asking about you and your conscience.
Right, but let me just say, you've just completely misinterpreted the situation. Lord Hutton has made clear there was no outing of Dr. Kelly. There was nothing underhand.
You said it would help to have his name out there.
That was my view. Did I do anything to bring that about? No, because I was under instruction from the Prime Minister. What my diary recorded was my account of what was happening at that time. But there are journalists who can say to you they were screaming at me to try to help them. And again, the media has sought to give the impression they weren't interested in Dr. Kelly's identity.
You wanted his name out there, his name got out there. Perhaps you were not the main causal influence in that. But what you wanted happened, and after it happened, he died.
Lord Hutton, with respect, has made clear there was no underhand strategy and it was inevitable that Dr. Kelly's name would come out. Dr. Kelly accepted that as well, as Tom Mangold has said again today. So honestly, Jeremy, I think you've really... I do respect you and I respect this programme and I respect a lot of people within the BBC, but the BBC is clutching at straws tonight and it should face the facts of what's in that report, because if it doesn't, it will compound the damage it's done to
I assure you, we
itself.
are certainly not doing that. A mistake was made and the thing was mishandled, and I don't think you'll find a person around here who doesn't accept
well, I know that's your view.
That's the case. But the broader question here is much more, is really quite profound.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those broader questions is why, if this dossier was not tampered with, as was alleged in the sloppy piece of journalism that you've attacked, if it wasn't tampered with, why was it so wrong?
Sorry, I don't follow the
evidence
question.
on which we went to war with Iraq has not turned out to be accurate.
Well, that, as the Prime Minister said today, is a debate that can be had. I'm no longer in government. I'm interested. The reason I'm in this chair, the reason I was at the Foreign Affairs Committee, the reason I was at the Intelligence and Security Committee, the reason I've had people from your profession outside my house day and night for many times over the last few months is because of Mr. Gilligan's allegation on the BBC. You can have that discussion with government ministers and the rest of it. But I did nothing wrong in relation to the dossier or in relation to David Kelly. And I think the BBC should face that, accept that, admit it. And you said earlier that...
Personally, I'm very happy to accept that Lord Hutton does not accuse you of doing anything wrong as regards this dossier, and nor does he accuse anyone in the intelligence community of doing anything wrong.
That's quite a big
broader
point.
question is, I'm not belittling it for a second. The broader question...
No, you want to move on to the broader question because the BBC doesn't like the questions being asked tonight.
I've just told you.
No, I know,
I'm saying,
but I'm telling you...
up on your strict point.
Fine.
The broader
telling
question,
you, Jeremy,
the dossier in which you were so intimately involved, why was it so wrong?
The dossier was a reflection of the intelligence that was being presented to the Prime Minister and the Cabinet at the time. That was the intelligence. Now, the questions you're asking, they're legitimate questions. Frankly, they are not for me tonight.
Well, why not? You were involved in drawing up the dossier.
And the dossier presented the intelligence that was being presented to the Prime Minister at the time. The Prime Minister has set out the position on weapons of mass destruction. That's his job. He's the Prime Minister. I'm going to take your questions and answer your questions about Lord Hutton's report.
Did you talk to Trevor Kavanagh of The Sun yesterday?
No, I did not.
So you're not the source of the...
I most certainly am not. And that, again, is another clutching at straw. And there have been people on the
honestly,
media tonight...
I'm not clutching at straws.
We've
already
conceded
conceded
not a central
the point.
issue. The government, Downing Street and I have categorically denied today that we had anything to do with that leak to the